Well, thank you very much for having me tonight. My name is Jeff Johnson. I'm running for governor of Minnesota. Thank you. And let me just say what an honor it is to be one of the warm-up acts for Phyllis Schlafly. She is a legend, and so I really appreciate being able to just take a couple minutes to introduce myself to those of you I don't know, and just tell you really quickly why I'm running for governor. Just as background, I grew up in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota. My wife is from Crookston. We went to Concordia College up in Moorhead, Minnesota. Spent a few years away. I went out to DC for a couple of years and to Chicago for a couple of years. And now we have been back in Plymouth for the last 18 years. We have two boys. Our son Thor is 15 and our son Rolf is 12. I have spent the majority of my adult life in the private sector, both as an employee and as a self-employed business owner. I also spent 6 years in the Minnesota House. And by the way, one of the driving forces for me to run for the House in the first place was the profile of learning, because I thought it was so horrible and pernicious with respect to my kids, but it's a walk in the park compared to what we're going to hear about tonight in Common Core. So I'm so thankful that we're going to get a little talk on that tonight. I'm also a member of the head of the county board. I've been on the county board for about 5 years as the often lone and sometimes loud voice for some small level of common sense and fiscal conservatism in the state's largest county. And I'm running for governor, and I'm seeking the party endorsement and will abide by that endorsement. And, you know, I have watched our current governor for the past 2.5 years right now. And I'm a Norwegian Lutheran from northern Minnesota, so I don't get real worked up and excited about a lot of things. But I've watched him, and in particular, I watched this past session, and it really made me angry on so many levels. But chief among them, kind of the bottom line for me, has to do with my two kids, because Thor is going to start looking at colleges probably in the next six to 8 months. I don't know where he's going to end up. I don't know where he'll start his career. Same thing with Rolf. But the key for me is I want them to make the same decision that my wife and I made. I want them to come back here. I want them to want to come back here in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years and take care of me when I'm old and cranky and infirm, and raise my grandkids here. And I'm just really worried that if we don't change the direction we're headed, that incentive is not going to be there for them to want to come back here. I've watched Governor Dayton, and his focus is all on government. Every day, 24/7. How do we get more money into government? How do we get more power to government? How do we make government more influential in people's decision making? My focus will be quite different as your governor. I really have 3 goals. Number one, and this has to be the number 1 goal of Minnesota's next governor, and that is the business climate, jobs climate in this state. Last year, actually 2011, Minnesota created per capita the fewest number of new businesses in the country. We can't sustain that. That was before this last session. It's not going to be better next year. I can guarantee you that. We have essentially been rolling over for Wisconsin and North Dakota and South Dakota the past few years, and we can't do that anymore. Our young people are actually moving from Minnesota to North Dakota. The world is upside down when that's happening. We need to turn that around, and there are a lot of things that we have to do about that, but that will be job number 1 for me, making us competitive at the very least with the states that surround us. Number 2 has to do with education. And there are a lot of reform ideas I have about education, but really the issue that stands at the top for me is the education achievement gap in Minnesota. That's the disparity in graduation rates between white students and students of color. In Minnesota, we have the largest achievement gap in the country, which is shocking to people, and I think actually quite shameful. And it's been the case on and off for almost 30 years, and we have been throwing money at that program, and we've been wringing our hands about it for decades, and we haven't changed a darn thing. And for me, I think that means a rather public battle with the education establishment and the teachers union about real school choice and parental empowerment. But I am happy to have that battle because I think it's just unconscionable that we're willing to give up on 10 to 15% of our kids here because of where they live or because of how poor their parents are. And then finally, number 3 is just a constant focus on some level of fiscal sanity in St. Paul, something we haven't seen the past year and a half. Minnesotans are very generous people, and I think most of us are happy to pay taxes to help the less fortunate get on their feet. But the problem is so many of the programs we fund, they don't produce that result, and they actually hurt the people we claim we want to help. So my goal as governor would be on day one to start what would likely turn into a 4-year top-to-bottom audit of the programs that taxpayers fund in this state, starting with our human service welfare program. And the ones that can prove that they're actually producing the results we say we want, move people off of welfare to self-sufficiency or reintegrate people back into society from prison, for example, we should celebrate those programs and they'll make the cut. But the programs that can't prove that, and there are many of them because I see it every day on the county board, we need to end those programs and we need to demand that government focus taxpayer dollars on programs that actually prove they can produce real results. Those are my goals. I'm a very focused guy. I'm not going to get distracted by shiny objects that fly around in St. Paul all the time, and we will get them done. So I'm seeking your endorsement. I would really appreciate your support, and I just thank you for inviting us tonight.
Thank you, Jeff. And now I'd like to introduce Dave Thompson, who's also running for governor.
It's an honor to be here. Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon that you can use to change the world. Now, I suspect when those words were uttered, he was thinking changing the world for good. We know that nothing truly can make a long-lasting change in this world for good like a properly run education system that teaches from a liberal arts perspective. I too want to indicate how proud I am to be standing up alongside Phyllis Schlafly. I feel, yes. I feel completely unworthy. This is somebody who has been in the trenches fighting the fight for freedom and liberty and a kind of education system that can make this nation great and proud for such a long time and doing it, swimming upstream in so many cases with courage and modesty and grace. Thank you for all you've done. We appreciate it. Folks, I'm the beneficiary of a public education here in Minnesota. I graduated from high school up in northwestern Minnesota in East Grand Forks, and in fact I went all through college in public schools. And the fact is that when we have successful public schools, what they do is they don't indoctrinate us. They don't teach us how we should think. They teach us how to think. And what you're going to learn about tonight, and I've done quite a bit of reading on already and continue to do so, is a program that rather than teaching our young people how to think more clearly and how to become better citizens, become better in math, science, technology, reading and writing, you're going to learn about a curriculum that is driving a specific and certain way of thinking. And it runs counter to the notion of freedom and liberty and small L liberal education we believe in here in this country. I am running for governor, but I'm here tonight talking to people that are concerned about education, so I'm going to restrict my comments to that. First, I want to thank you all for being here. You could be doing something else. And many people, when I talk to them, they say, thank you for putting yourself out there and running for governor. And they ask me, why are you doing this? And I'll turn it around to you folks and say, why are you here? Well, in many cases, people are here for business issues or they're here for other kinds of things. I know that you are here tonight to hear Phyllis Schlafly and others speak to us about education because you're sincerely concerned about the curriculum that is coming down, about the kinds of things that our children will be taught, the lessons that they will learn, and the ideology that they will gain from an education system that we already know is grossly flawed and not the right way to move forward in this country. So thank you for being here. And I am going to focus very heavily on a healthy economy, making sure that people have jobs, take care of their families, feed their children. That is a short-run problem. And that is a problem that is correctable no matter where you are. It is almost never too late to fix our economy. I can assure you that if we have a Republican government who believes in conservative ideas, then we can try to hold back the growth and the size of government and see economic growth and change things. But folks, there is something that you cannot change. You cannot change a populace that is indoctrinated with the idea that the government is the be-all, end-all, and those folks go on to be our community and business leaders and create an entitlement state and a totalitarian state that doesn't allow free thought and free thinking. A liberal education is at the heart of the ideal that in America, the individual is supreme. Power to the government flows from the individuals. We give that power voluntarily when we believe that our rights are inherent in humanity and God-given, and that government does not grant our rights, but it is in reverse, that the people grant the government a limited amount of power to oversee the affairs of state. And if we lose that in our children, and we lose that in our grandchildren, there is no economic policy that can save us. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you'll listen carefully, and I hope that people will mobilize to make sure that this program does not move forward. Because in order for America to be a greater nation 10 and 50 and 100 years from now than it is today, we must have new ideas. We must have technology changes. We must have innovation. We must have right people that are willing to change the world. But I'm here to tell you, folks, that the notion of liberty and freedom and individual choice and responsibility is an enduring idea, an enduring set of principles that if we lose, there will be no tax policy, no economic policy, and no other policy that can make up for it. So let's continue the battle for the minds, the hearts, and the souls of our children, so that they grow up to value the freedom, the liberty that our founding fathers gave us by creating this great document called our United States Constitution, and that many men and women have died to defend. And I'm here to tell you, as much as I care about economic policy, without keeping our young, without helping them to understand the source of their liberty, the source of their freedom, and the danger in a centralized government, if we don't win that battle, no other battle matters. Thank you so much for being here. I'd be honored by your support. Have a great day.